Here's your report.
Oh, thanks, Jane. I wish I could hire someone just like you.
Try LinkedIn Hiring Pro. It's more than a job board. It's like the recruiter you always wished you had. Hiring Pro uses real-time insights to match your role to LinkedIn's unique network of professionals and delivers a short list of best fit candidates. You'll spend less time sorting applicants and more time talking to the right people.
Let's do it. You're irreplaceable, Jane, but another you would be great.
Hire right the first time. Post your job for free on LinkedIn today at linkedin.com/quality.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is our show for the week of Schmurz Day, July 27th, 2026. On the show today, news, listener questions, and a new Disney survey that asks, do you trust us? Then in our main segment, Jim continues the history of Imagineering's work on living creatures in the parks. Let's get started by bringing in the man who says there are two hard problems in computer programming: cache invalidation, inheritance semantics, and off-by-one errors. It's Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
Hey, it's going well, Len. But again, the world of computer programming, I have many questions about. Chief among these being Fortran, which, by the way, is celebrating its 70th anniversary this year. IBM first developed Fortran back in 1956, and this is what allowed compilers to first produce accurate code, which was a very big deal back in the late 50s.
Oh, yeah.
But here's the thing, Len. Fortran is a third-generation compiled imperative programming language designed to aid in the creation of numeric computations and scientific computing.
Yeah, the Fortran, I think, means formula translator. Go ahead.
Well, see, now that's the thing, all right? Now forgive me for being nitpicky, but if Fortran is supposed to be the third generation of this program, shouldn't it technically be called 3-tran?
There you go.
All right, sorry. I'm here all week, folks. Tip your waitresses. This is what happens when a dumb guy tries to do a computer-related joke.
So since we're in my field of semi-expertise here, the interesting thing is Intel, the company that makes microchips, makes compilers that are targeted specifically to Intel chip architectures. They still make a Fortran compiler in the year of our Lord 2026.
That tells you a lot about what's going on in those rooms at offices around the planet. Those super cool rooms where they're trying to keep the old stuff going.
Oh, yeah. And by old stuff, you mean the programmers who developed COBOL programming in the 1960s.
Yes, but I still remember when I used to manage that security account for Digital Equipment Corporation, and you'd go into the server room.
Oh, I used to work in a server room. Yeah.
So you walk inside and it's like, welcome to Ice Station Zebra.
You would walk in with the weirdest thermal inversion thing going on, because like during summer, the cooling towers inside the building have to work especially hard to keep the computers cold. So you would be dressing like I'd be bringing sweaters into work in July.
Oh yeah,
long pants, boots.
But the other thing I always found was fascinating is when you got into the actual room. Remember how you'd come through the door and then would have to walk up 2 steps because they had
raised floor.
That's exactly to cool all of the all of the machines with all of those giant disk packs that looked like cake tins.
Yep. My early days of programming started off with reel-to-reel tapes, not card punches. And we got away from those pretty quickly. But it was towards the tail end. Yeah, long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, super fun.
Yeah.
All right, Jim, let's do a quick shout out to our subscribers. Thanks to everyone who subscribes to the show over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia, including Sarah Spencer, Anne Marie, Easily Reachable Impossible Conclusion, Kathleen McGrath, Amy Wilson, and Judy Cast. Jim, This is Disney's food and bev team working on blind box meals for Piston Peak. To be authentic to the American West while staying flexible, the menu items will be known simply as victuals, vittles, grub, and chow. And you're going to get whatever the chuck wagon has on hand. True story. Honey, do you want the victuals or the vittles?
I can't wait to see the line for the hardtack.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah. Biscuits. All right, Jim, on to the news. Folks, the Disney Dish News is sponsored by Be Our Guest Vacations from our friend at dvcrentalstore.com. Jim, you've made it through 30 Mondays so far this year, and that calls for a little treat. I'm thinking a theme park fountain soda because it tastes better than a fountain soda from everywhere else. Friendly folks are standing by at beourguestvacations.com to help you book that next trip too, getting you the hydration you need. All right, Jim, on to the news. Jim, over in Walt Disney World, the August 7th Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party is sold out. I believe this is the first event, right?
That's true.
So now we have the first two have sold out because that following Friday, and then Halloween is sold out.
Well, that's the thing. The crowd that wants bragging rights, they want to get in there first or close to first, and then there are the folks who always want to close out the event. Want to be there for actual Halloween. So
yeah, that'd be great. I was walking around Pop Century yesterday doing a little staycation, and at 7:00 at night, it was still 90-some degrees. I cannot imagine in 2 weeks getting dressed up in a costume and doing a Halloween party. But, people are going to do it, so we'll see.
They are.
All right, Jim, over at Epcot, we mentioned this before, but the Parisian Breakfast Buffet is back on Fridays and Saturdays at Food and Wine. And I mentioned this, Jim, because it's $65 per person. And if I know our listeners, Jim, that's a very fair price to pay for unlimited croissants, pastries, charcuterie, and mimosas, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I could eat $65 worth of that.
Now, where is this staged exactly in the France Pavilion?
I'm guessing it's back at Boulangerie Pâtisserie.
That's what I was thinking
it's got
as
seating.
well.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
If any of our listeners do it, let us know how much of your money's worth you get. All right, Jim, over in Disneyland, did you see that the Earl of Sandwich has officially reopened at Downtown Disney?
Yeah. And
did you see who they had on hand for the ribbon cutting ceremony?
Well, I love when they do this, when they actually bring over the really for real Earl of Sandwich. This is what, the 12th Earl of Sandwich?
12th Earl of Sandwich, the Honorable Luke Montague. Yeah, and also they had Earl of Sandwich founder Robert Earl. So you want to talk about celebrities, royalty. Wow.
There we go.
That's fantastic. All right, Jim, over at Universal, we've got a new Halloween Horror Nights house, which is Evil Dead Burn. So if you're in a vacation house in the woods and something goes wrong, so it's part of the Evil Dead franchise, which is good.
I was literally just last night blipping around cable channels and found the very first Evil Dead movie with Bruce Campbell.
Oh yeah, that was fun. That was a good movie. Yeah,
I mean, a very slapstick, gory kind of way. I mean, it was the film that introduced Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi to the world, so it was fun.
Right. Yeah, it was. Also, our friend Theme Park Wizard found a construction notice for Lost Continent at Universal that seems to indicate an Omnimover ride system for Pokemon at Lost Continent. And Jim, Omnimover, interesting choice there. What do you think they're thinking?
Well, and this is in theory going in as a replacement for Poseidon's Fury down in that corner of the park. Is that correct?
Right, ride for stage show. Yeah, makes sense.
I guess I'm kind of intrigued by this being suggested as going for Pokemon, because weren't we hearing that area, especially given Mythos, was looking more towards Zelda?
You would think just from the Rockwork Zelda, but that would mean if Pokemon's going here, that would mean Zelda over at Epic Universe, right?
I guess. Again, at some point in the future, Universal is going to lay down its cards, and we're finally going to know where some of this stuff is going.
Yeah. I think so. A couple of other bits of information. Did you happen to catch Comcast's earning call yesterday? Comcast owns Universal and the theme parks.
And the parks were a little softer than expected. Is that correct?
Right. They specifically said that Revenue growth was driven by Orlando, led by the continued strength at Epic Universe, but performance across the broader resort was below expectations, with attendance softening beginning in June, which has continued into the third quarter. And that's interesting because I think we talked on last week's show. I did some research for a Los Angeles Times interview for both Disneyland, Walt Disney World, and I sort of tacked on Universal as well. And I mentioned that through the end of May, everything looked fine. And we didn't have, at the time, this was mid-July, didn't quite have the June numbers yet. So it's interesting to see that things sort of fell off a cliff in June for Universal, at least.
Yeah, I wonder how much of this is, folks, for example, who drive in from Orlando. Right. And in fact, seeing what's going on right now with gas prices, surging again. I wonder, what this is going to do to numbers for the next quarter. Yeah,
there are a couple of things going on there. One is that June was the month in which consumer sentiment took a substantial dip based on, the war, the economy, and things like that. It did rebound a little bit later on so far this month in July. But the other thing I would note is Disney said this before, that they pull more affluent families than the average trip. And I think from the household income ranges that Universal and Disney put on their surveys, that Universal doesn't quite pull from the same top 20% of American households by income. So you would think that changes to fuel costs, whether that's gasoline or airfare or things like that, that would impact Universal more than Disney.
Interesting.
That's my hypothesis.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, Jim, on to surveys. Our friend Andrea sent in a really interesting new Disney survey. And these questions are the typical 5-point Likert scale from strongly agree to strongly disagree. But here's some of the interesting questions, and I want to get from you your ideas as to why Disney might be asking them. So here are the 5 questions that they ask. I trust the DisneyWorld.com website to present information that is in my best interest. I trust the information on the DisneyWorld.com website. I trust that the DisneyWorld.com website is transparent in its pricing. I trust the full cost of the quoted offerings without needing to search for additional details. I believe that the DisneyWorld.com website is the source of truth relative to other websites.
Ooh.
So a couple of them I get just from basic trustworthiness, like the full cost of the quoted offerings without needing to search for additional details, transparency in pricing. I mean, Disney does that pretty well. Yeah. But the other ones, like I believe that the DisneyWorld.com website is the source of truth relative to other websites, and that it presents information that's in my best interest.
Those are very specific questions, and wow, that's also kind of a subjective angle, right? I mean, this is a corporate website. Normally it's like, well, of course you're going to take it at face value. The notion of suddenly concerned about truth.
Yeah. So in asking around about this, one of the things that was pointed out to me was that for people who use AI chatbots a lot, ChatGPT, Claude, things like that, those sites use other sites and reference them as authorities or sources of truth about the things they talk about. And, not to brag or anything, but touring plans is actually a source of truth for Epcot. That's just how I know this particular thing, right? So ChatGPT and Claude both think that touring plans is an authoritative source for information about Epcot. And I think that the first question to present information that's in my best interest and is the source of truth relative to other websites, I think that is to address that Disney wants to ensure that the Disney website is cited as an authoritative source of information about their own theme parks. That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what's intriguing about Disney investigating this is I remember when the company launched D23 back in 2009. Right. And to be completely blunt here, the notion was that we don't own our own stories online.
Right.
That we, all of these other sites are reporting us. We need a stronger presence. We need to step into this space. So I'm just kind of intrigued as to if there's a similar effort about to get launched to sort of claw this source of truth thing back.
It's funny that you mentioned D23 because wasn't the Moms panel and Plan Disney a reaction to online forums, specifically disboards.com?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, what was interesting about that is Disney got those things up and running, and then it's like, okay, that's nice. Thank you. You helped us
and then
get
social media. And social media came out and did.
There we go.
It's interesting that they asked the question about presenting information that's in my best interest, and then the source of truth relative to other websites, because there are things that Disney would naturally be hesitant to mention that other sites would. And here I'm specifically thinking of like very low rated restaurants.
Well, yeah.
Like, would Disney ever say that like of the 100 quick service restaurants we have in Walt Disney World, this one's ranked number 99? Would they ever say that?
That's what's fascinating about that dichotomy there is, it's like, okay, if we put the truth out, we would in fact drive people to the other better restaurants on property. On the other hand, we would also literally, it's like, this is 99.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just, what would that information do to, people who were in the park that day? Again, it's the effect of, no, don't want to go there. The food's supposed to be terrible.
Right. I'm thinking of specifically of other things like the fact that you can get lightning lanes for shows, even though those are rarely a good choice for lightning lane. Like if you're going midweek in September, you probably do not need a lightning lane for, Nemo. You can probably just walk into the show. Would that be considered my best interest or a source of truth relative to other websites? Could Disney ever say, hey, you probably this isn't a great idea for you? Or, use it on something else.
What's weird about this is this seems very Animal Farm-esque. How truthy would Disney want to be here?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
They could be truthier, but do they really want to lay it all out there? I don't think so.
I mean, let's give them credit. I mean, the pricing is transparent. The full cost of the quoted offerings do include all the additional details. They're right on that. Right?
They are.
Yeah. And in general, the information is generally correct for the website. Sometimes, anytime you run a big website, it's hard to keep all of the information current. And so,
Well, I will say this much: the folks you work with over at Touring Plans, I mean, they take that job seriously.
Yeah.
How many times has poor Chrissy been in the park counting things or trying new foods or that sort of thing? So folks have current information, and it's just, wow. I'm kind of intrigued to see Disney eyeballing the space and trying to get their arms around, well, what can we do here?
Yeah, if any of our listeners have any ideas about what Disney might be trying to get to with those questions, please let us know. Jim, I want to point out one other question that Andrea's survey included, and it was this. Thinking about this task, and the task is researching a water park. In general, how do you prefer to accomplish this task? And it's via the Disney World website without any help, via My Disney Experience without any help, DisneyWorld.com, or MDE chat with a live person, calling the reservation center, and then going to DisneyWorld.com, begin on DisneyWorld.com, and then calling for additional help, and then calling the Disney Reservation Center to assist me with the task and doing nothing online. And let me point out, Disney survey creators, 99.44% of the people in your theme parks today will need 3 to 5 business days to psych themselves up to actually talk to another person on the phone. That should absolutely not be an option right there.
No. I mean, it's so funny that Nancy and I do this all the time. I'm just like, you could call somebody. Oh God, no.
I could. There's a lot of things I could do. Yeah.
There we go.
The other question I like is this. How well could you explain to friends or family how to research a water park? And by the way, again, Disney survey people, the actual phrase is, how well could you explain to friends or family how to research a water park? Got to fix your grammar there, but whatever. I think the better question is, would your friends or family have you committed for observation if you explain to them how you research a Disney vacation? There's a similar question about how well could you explain to friends or family how to use Lightning Lane?
Mm-hmm.
And I know our listeners can, but I would refer our friends at Disney Surveys to the Wikipedia entry for the phrase Dunning-Kruger effect. And this is interesting from a survey design question because it doesn't differentiate between I could explain extremely well and be wrong, and I could explain it extremely well and be right. And from Disney's perspective, right, if the DisneyWorld.com website gives you a false sense of confidence and you still feel good about it, is that enough?
I
know, right? I don't know that I get why they would want to know the answer to this question, but it's very nuanced, right? Like people might think they know, but they don't really know, and there's no way to get at that at a survey question. But even then, from Disney's perspective, does that matter? Yeah, really interesting.
Now, was it the Wall Street Journal that did an article within the last week to 10 days where they talked about how complicated it has become?
They did, yeah.
In fact, how they talked about how when your family goes into the park, the family members can actually enjoy the vacation, and then there's the designated phone person that's
the scroller, the designated scroller,
that face down on their phone trying to get better times for Lightning Lane and that sort of thing. And that whole article was about how it has gotten complex, and I want to say the new head of the park flat out said, yeah, we are in fact looking into that. We know that perception is out there and we're trying to address it.
It's interesting in that Disney does have a product, Lightning Lane Premier Pass, that lets you avoid all of that, just tap and go. But the price is so high.
Yeah.
For a family of four, you're looking at like $1,800, in the Magic Kingdom, that it makes sense for somebody to just fall on the grenade, right? And be the one that scrolls all day. But you're right, it's not a great experience.
No, it's not.
All right, Jim, our friend Haston sent in a Disney survey asking specific questions about Epic Universe. And again, it's a Disney survey. That's really interesting. So if you say you visited Epic Universe in this Disney survey, here are the follow-up questions. If you had not visited Epic Universe, how many days do you think you would have visited the Walt Disney World theme parks on your recent trip? How many days did you visit Universal? How many days did you visit Epic? How many days did you visit Walt Disney World? Did Epic Universe take away Walt Disney World days or add on to your trip? Assuming ticket cost type didn't matter, would you spend more days at Walt Disney World or Universal? And then why did you go to Walt Disney World and why did you go to Universal or Epic Universe? And Jim, I think this is interesting because we've just now finished the first year of Epic Universe.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised that Disney didn't ask this question 9 months ago.
Yeah, but, I think the folks at Disney were paying attention to the fact that, the folks at Universal have been throttling attendance to the park. So the perception was, okay, it's not a huge number of people. Let's wait. Let's wait because it's also, let's be honest here, the perception of Epic Universe, is it, in fact, we've talked about how the team that's working on Villains Land for the Magic Kingdom, was literally told by Josh D'Amaro to go back because the thinking by Disney upper management was the yardstick for is this a successful land is going to be, people are going to compare it to the Island of Berk, the How to Train Your Dragons area. So Disney is very aware of the effect that Epic Universe is having when it comes to the themed entertainment conversation. But this is fascinating, as you mentioned, this far out, a year past the opening, getting a sense of, well, how many days did you go to Epic, and how many of those days did you take away from going to Walt Disney World?
I wonder if this survey, which, by the way, I think this is the first time we've seen these questions, and it is coming in July. We just mentioned that Universal said that attendance started softening in June. I wonder if Disney is also seeing the same thing and trying to attribute it either to competition or the general state of the economy.
Oh, that's an excellent observation. Okay, yeah.
That would explain the timing of it, right? Like why now and not 9 months ago? We'll see. Okay, fair.
Okay.
All right, Jim, on to listener questions. Here's one from Nick who says, have there been any discussions at Disney about bringing back the resort benefit that delivers on-property purchases directly to your hotel? I imagine I'm not alone in spending less simply because I prefer not to carry items around all day or forget to pick them up later. If a full rollout isn't feasible, perhaps it could be offered as a deluxe resort perk or for a small convenience fee. And Jim, I don't think we've heard anything about this being discussed as coming back. But we just did the case for with Chris Cox.
We did.
In which we noted how much our listeners really want this to come back. So hopefully Disney's listening there, right?
Yeah, we can only hope. I mean, again, even as a perk, as Nick mentioned here at the deluxe resorts, that'd be a hell of a perk.
It would be. All right, Jim, on last week's show, we mentioned the slowdown in sit-down dining and how it might affect Disney's plans for future lands. And our friend Todd sent in a video from July 4th at Hollywood and Vine showing a half-empty breakfast shift there. And I included the video link in the show notes. And Todd says, I've been saying since the advent of Lightning Lane that I noticed the decline in sit-down dining and kind of missed the old days when everybody was clamoring for dining reservations, although I enjoy getting any reservation I want on a whim now. Yeah, I kind of like the current situation quite a bit.
Yeah, but when you think about that, Hollywood and Vine, that's the one that's off of Echo Lake, that's character dining, right? Normally,
it is character dining, yeah, and character dining is generally more popular than non-character dining. So.
Yeah, so wow, a half-empty breakfast shift, that's not good.
No, and that's at the upper end of what we had heard internally, right? So internally we heard that like breakfasts and lunch were running 25 to 55% of capacity ish. So, half capacity is actually good, relatively speaking.
Wow.
Fair.
Okay.
And then related to that, Steve sent in an email that says, I'm in my 50s and so many people I know are using GLP-1s to maintain or reduce their weight. Obviously, this causes many to eat and drink less than before. What impacts do you think or see from increased GLP-1 use in the parks that could also be contributing to changes in guest dining habits? So, I think Steve's on a point here. So, I'm taking tirzepatide. So, and that's a GLP-1 and it's definitely cut down my appetite. GLP-1 use for diabetes probably skews older than for weight loss. My guess is we're nearing like 10% of the U.S. population on some sort of GLP-1.
Yeah, and I myself have been on Ozempic for a year and a half at this point, and I've noticed it as well.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is the Wall Street Journal reported earlier this year that restaurants are adapting to GLP-1 use by moving to smaller portions and more proteins and fiber. But the problem with Disney is that smaller portions and fixed price $85 lunches don't make a good value proposition, right? So that might explain the shift to more entertainment focused venues. And for Disney, makes you wonder if we need as many sit down restaurants, right?
There we go.
This explains sort of like the Coral Reef temporary closure or the seasonal shutdown. I think they actually came out and said it's for a refurb, but Jim, refurb. Yeah, fair. All right. Last question's from Ben, who says, what will the transportation situation be like at Epic Universe at the end of Celestial Goodnight, the new fireworks show? My family and I will be there in August, staying at Royal Pacific. I'd love to see the show, but I noticed that Celestial Goodnight begins at 9 p.m., which is coincidentally the same time that Epic Universe closes. Has Universal thought this through? Will we get back to our hotel in a reasonable amount of time, or will we be waiting in a, quote, epic bus line?
Okay.
Nice one, Ben.
Okay.
All right. I've not heard anything bad about the transportation out of Epic. And Jim, you remember when we talked about Epic Universe opening last year, we included observations on how much easier it is to get in and out of Epic relative to City Walk, let's say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in that respect, Ben, I don't think you'll have an issue. Definitely let us know what happens. But I think in and out of Epic Universe way easier than in and out of the other parks, especially if you're taking your own transportation or a bus. So I am cautiously optimistic for you here, Ben, but let us know how it goes.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Jim continues our look at Imagineering's work on the living creatures initiatives in the parks. We'll be right back.
Tomorrow morning is knocking. Stock your fridge now. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or a sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel, maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Listening to this podcast instead of doom scrolling? Smart move. Another smart move? Getting help from one of State Farm's 19,000 local agents when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Choice Hotels get you more of what you value. Comfort Inn, it's calling your name. Save on the stay. Oh, And free waffles are yours to claim. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
And we're back. All right, Jim, on last week's show, we were talking about Turtle Talk with Crush, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right.
And, we put out there at the tail end of last week's show is that, this could have wound up as yet another short-lived exhibit over at Interventions. Something that, while it demonstrated some genuinely interesting technology that the Imagineers had just dreamed up, it could still fail to catch on with Epcot visitors, but that would probably be because Turtle Talk had wound up being, set up in some obscure corner of Interventions East, wedged between Oracle's Information Highway exhibit and do you remember Force of Our Future?
Force of Our Future, yeah,
there we go.
Good.
But the downside is due to positioning, Crush's coaster wouldn't have gotten the foot traffic to catch on. Because Len, let's be honest here. That is literally the story of dozens of exhibits that were staged in Interventions over its 25-year run in Future World.
25 years, yeah.
Yeah, well, again, Interventions debuted at Epcot back in July of 1994. And again, replacement for Communicore. And this early iteration of Interventions was largely inspired by CES. That's the Consumer Electronics Show that's staged in Vegas every year, second week of January. But anyway, Interventions ran from July of 1994 to November 2019. That's when demo began in Interventions West. This is where Communicore Hall would eventually be built, and Interventions East was then gutted and turned into this theme park Connections Eatery, which I would argue is a great addition to that theme park.
Yeah, that feels like a fair trade, especially when you throw an electric umbrella with Interventions East. Like, is Interventions East plus electric umbrella better than Connections Eatery? I don't think so.
There we go.
Okay.
All right, but anyway, if you paid attention to Interventions participants, there was a story you heard over and over and over again. And basically it was, we gave all this money to WDI to create a display, which was then supposed to demonstrate our company's newest products, the latest tech, to all the people who visit Epcot. But then when we'll actually go down to Florida and we see the display, it's got lousy placement inside of Interventions, or the signage is all wrong, or we're being dwarfed by our next door neighbor. And this is why I always felt so bad for the cast members who worked in participant relations at Walt Disney World, because there was always some company that had just come into Interventions. Because again, they were always changing the lineup of exhibits there, and there was always somebody who was unhappy about their display and wanted things changed immediately to fix this. But again, Turtle Talk with Crush lucked out, because when WDI went to try to find a spot for this show at Epcot, the only space that was available at that time was a teeny tiny corner of the Living Seas. Len, this was specifically known as Module 1C. Do you remember this? This was first floor of the building, just outside of the gift shop exit to the Future World Pavilion. There was a display in there called Earth Systems, What on Earth? Do you remember this at all?
I don't, but I do know, because I've walked through it like in the last week, the first floor is set up where you exit the ride, and then you've got, stairs going upstairs to the main tank and exhibits. But you've also got these little rooms, right, with different small exhibits.
Yeah.
So it took one of those rooms? I don't remember Earth Systems.
It did.
Oof, wow.
Some folks might remember these were modular exhibits. And for example, in this space, they dealt with physical sciences that made up the vast undersea surface of our planet. So we're talking underwater volcanoes, plate tectonics, how the ocean currents affect weather, and all very well-intentioned exhibits, Len. But because Module 1C...
There's a name that just rolls off the tongue.
There we go. But again, it's positioned right by the gift shop, right by the exit. So many guests, when they got to that point, it's like, just blew by these exhibits.
Yeah.
So in WDI's eyes, this makes that space inside of Living Seas the perfect spot to set up an early proof of concept version of Turtle Talk. And that would go online in November of 2004. This improvisational real-time conversation with Crush. Again, the green sea turtles from Pixar's 2003 film Finding Nemo. But what's interesting, Len, is they'd actually test-driven this attraction twice earlier out in California, only with different characters. Oh. Now, on the very first installment of the series, we talked about Mickey's Toon Elevator, which was a prototype of a possible show for the parks that the Imagineers showed to friends and family at a WD open house in 2001. And but here's the interesting thing, Len. Everyone who took part in this demo was wowed by, what it allowed them to do, which, again, you're having a real-time conversation with the one and only Mickey Mouse. Yeah. Only problem is, Len, is Mickey is historically this very polite character, never rude, so he's not one to interrupt a guest and say, well, this is nice, but I gotta go. time to wrap this up. Well, that's it exactly. So this is why the guest interactions with Mickey at this WDA open house tend to drag on far longer than the Imagineers had ever intended. And yet, because Mickey is just too nice to say, we've been talking for more than 5 minutes now. There are other people in line. Can we move things along? and so that's the Imagineers then realized that in order for this proposed attraction to have adequate hourly throughput, sufficient capacity to make sense from a business point of view. If you're going to install an interactive show at the Disney parks and get sufficient capacity, you're going to have to build it around an obnoxious character, someone who would have no trouble after, 3 or 4 minutes of conversation to say to them, well, you're boring me now. I'm done with this conversation. Goodbye, peasant.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, now, this is where it gets interesting, because late 1996, Disney had collaborated with John Hughes, he's the guy who made the Home Alone movies, on a live-action version of 101 Dalmatians. This is the one where Glenn Close played Cruella de Vil. And that does so well at the box office that year. It's one of the top 10 high-grossing films for all of 96.
Wow.
Disney quickly puts a sequel into production. That's 102 Dalmatians, which arrives in theaters November of 2000. By the way, directed by Kevin Lima, same guy who did the Goofy movie and Disney's original Enchanted. There was also a home premiere, 101 Dalmatians 2, Patch's London Adventure. That hit store shelves in November of 2002. And in between this, there's even 101 Dalmatians, the series, which is an animated program that airs on ABC and Toon Disney between September of 1997 and March of 1998.
So that's one season, right?
Yeah, they're just one season. But here's the thing. In the early 2000s, 101 Dalmatians as a film franchise is having a moment at the Walt Disney Company, which is why on the heels, again, of this playtest, and not entirely successful playtest, of Mickey's Toon Elevator, the Imagineers are now toying with the idea of giving guests an up-close and personal encounter with Cruella de Vil.
See, I think as an adult, that would probably be great, but kids wouldn't. You'd have to approach it either ironically or you'd have to play it straight. Kids, kids might have an issue.
You nailed it in one. Adults loved the idea. Little kids were freaked out. But what's ironic here, Len, is I've spoken with at least one Imagineer who suggested that the problem with, and I guess this was tentatively called fashion chat with Cruella de Vil, was that Disney, to be honest, was a year or two early with this idea. And what he means by that is season 1 of Project Runway with Heidi Klum and Tim Gunn doesn't debut on Bravo till December of 2004. And, and the thing is, look, if we'd followed that. Guests would have stood in line to hang out with Cruella. So it's right idea at the wrong time.
That's a shame. That would have been fun. Okay.
All right. So, all right. So now the Imagineers know they need a somewhat mean character to power this revamped version of Mickey's Toon Elevator. But again, character that's behind behind this interactive experience, which again, you want it 3 minutes long, has to be less mean and less frightening than Cruella de Vil. And again, just a reminder, this is late 2001, early 2002, which is when Feature Animation Florida is putting the finishing touches on Lilo and Stitch, which is when somebody in Imagineering says, hey, that little blue alien, he seems kind of obnoxious. And we'll get to how Stitch's Photophone show led to Turtle Talk with Crush in a sec. But first, this.
If you want all of your data in one place, you need the Intuit ERP. I'm Damon John, and I run my growing business on Intuit Enterprise Suite. Learn more at intuit.com/ERP.
You mind if we make one more stop before heading back? I need to run a Target.
100%. Let's RTT. You thinking of stuff for the dorm?
Yeah. My mom gave me some good tips on must-have essentials. We for sure need underbed storage, handheld iron for wrinkles, maybe even a mini Keurig for Mondays. Am I right?
All right, bet. Because I was already thinking about keeping my clothes looking fresh at college, so you better be sharing that.
Of course, man. Whatever I get on this run is yours too.
Twin.
But for real, let's go before they close.
Find everything you need for college at Target.
United connects you to more of the world than any U.S. airline, and United for Business can get your company where you need to go. Whether you're growing a business or managing travel for thousands, they offer solutions to fit your needs. Track expenses, create reports, and manage traveler perks. Plus, employees earn Mileage Plus miles while your company saves on travel. Get started with no minimum spend or flight requirements. Visit business.united.com/podcast.
And we're back. All right, so Len, we were talking earlier on in today's show about interventions, but I also want to remind folks that as part of the new Tomorrowland project out in Anaheim, this was the reimagining of that side of Disneyland Park through open its doors in May of 1998. These days, people largely remember it for the rocket rods. That's that high-speed attraction that traveled on the old People Mover track and plagued with problems right from the get-go. And mind you, the Imagineers tried mightily to fix the thing, but eventually they threw up their hands in April 2001. In less than 3 years after the rocket rods came online, it was shut down. But anyway, a few months after the new Tomorrowland opened at Disneyland Park in Anaheim, that theme park got its own version of interventions. Do you remember this?
I remember this, yeah. I remember this. It was in Carousel of Progress.
That's right. It actually opened July 3rd, 1998, and that's 2 months after the rest of new Tomorrowland had first opened. And me, personally, what I loved about Disneyland's version of interventions is that the pre-show featured this amazing animatronic Tom Morrow that was voiced by Nathan Lane.
Nathan Lane, right. He was playing Nathan Lane. Nathan Lane is Nathan Lane, yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It was great fun. But again, the thing we're here to talk about today, Stitch's Photophone, was actually located up on the second floor of Disneyland's version of interventions. In fact, is in this part of the old Carousel of Progress building that was informally known as the Synergy Zone. And some folks today might remember this specific area in interventions because from 2013 to late winter, early spring of 2015, this is where you could go see temporary exhibits that were tied to the latest MCU movie. This is where Tony Stark's Hall of Armor was located. Likewise, where you could go and do meet and greets with members of the Avengers like Thor and Captain America. Mm-hmm. Anyway, again, what we're here to talk about today, Stitch's Photophone, predates all of that Marvel stuff by more than a decade. This interactive experience came online in Disneyland's version of interventions in late July, early August of 2002, which, by the way, less than 6 weeks months after Lilo and Stitch, and again, we're talking the original hand-drawn film, debuted in theaters June 16th of that same year, 2002.
That's not bad at all. 6 weeks.
Well, no. This is crazy fast for Imagineering. I mean, think about it. Mickey's Toontown Elevator, it's shown off at that open house in 2001. Fashion Chat with Cruella is prototyped late 2001, early 2002, and now Stitch's Photophone is actually up and running in Interventions by mid-summer of 2002. I mean, that is just fast.
For Disney, yeah, that's very fast, yeah.
There we go. And because this is brand new tech that is coming online in the park, the Disneyland line, and that's the cast member newspaper, actually does an in-depth article about this new interactive attraction, which is published August 30th of that year, 2002. And it very much pops the hood, Len, on how this sort of interactive attraction actually works. Now, Stitch's Photophone, 3-minute-long experience. It starts when guests enter a booth with a screen and a phone, and when they pick up the phone, Stitch then appears on screen and then says hi in his distinctive voice. And behind the scenes at this attraction, and again, this is just getting underway at Disneyland, we learned that there are 6 Interventions cast members who have been taught to do Stitch's voice. And that when they work at this attraction, they are sitting backstage at a computer console with a headset on, and they're holding a computer game controller in their hand.
Okay.
All right. And as the guests start asking Stitch questions, the cast member, again, backstage, who's watching the guests on a monitor, there's a live camera in the booth where Stitch's Photophone is being staged. And as the guest is talking to Stitch, the cast member, who again is using the live camera to gain information about the guests, what they're wearing, what's hanging off of their purse, whatever they can personalize this moment with. But they're using the game controller to move Stitch through this series of previously animated, appropriate movements for this character. So
nice. Okay.
All right. So, but there's a menu that they're sampling from, which allows them to, for example, have Stitch climb down from out of a palm tree or cock his head to the side, blink his eyes, wave his arms.
Nice.
And the whole time this is going on, the cast member is talking with the guest in Stitch's voice, answering questions in real time. But at the same time, because his character is something of a smartass, he's working off this repertoire of jokes that over time the cast members have built up that really work with Southern California locals. Like, this is an example. The Stitch says, "So where are you from?" And the guest says, "Riverside." And so Stitch says, "So you live by the side of a river?" and the guest goes, "Well, no, there's no river in Riverside." And Stitch, wraps this bit up with, "Well, that's what I heard about Bakersfield, too, that there's no field out there that's filled with guys wearing big white puffy hats."
I mean, as an alien, you got to be confused by the language. That's what I'm saying.
There we go.
All right.
But again, 3 minutes in, it's now time to bring this interaction to a close. So Stitch pulls out a camera, takes a digital photo of the guests, which, by the way, is taken from that live camera that's inside the booth. And to then bring this interactive experience to an obnoxious close, Stitch, pulls out the photo, shows it to the guests, and then tears it up in front of them.
Okay. Right.
Before laughing and running off screen. And what was kind of ingenious about how Disney did this going forward was it's at this moment where the cast member steps into the booth and goes, "Hang on, I think I can save that photo for you. Come with me." And so the guests, and by the way, no more than 5 people at a time were allowed into Stitch's Photophone.
Okay.
The cast member then takes these guests over to a computer in the post-show area and gets their email address and then offers to send them a copy of that photo if they fill out a brief post-show survey about their Stitch's Photophone experience. And I have
so it's 5 guests at a time, and it's roughly 5 minutes.
There we go. All right. And this is, the reason Mr. Testa mentions this is where things started to go south. I mean, don't get me wrong. Imagineering's got a lot of great feedback, especially from that free photo offer, when you did the post survey. But the one consistent complaint about Stitch's Photophone was, the line just moved too slow. I mean, again, as Len mentioned, you load in, load out, 5 guests tops every 5 minutes. Geez, that's 60 people
60
an hour?
guests an hour? Yeah. And that's not a lot. I mean, so you probably have multiple booths, but what do you have, 5 of them?
Yeah.
So 300 guests an hour, that's basically water park slide capacity there. Yeah.
There we go. And so the thinking was, the Imagineers are looking at guest survey results, and they know this sort of interactive experience, this is something that guests want, but they now have to figure out, we have to scale this up. How can we get a large number of guests, not 5, but 100 to experience this? So we'll talk about how Stitch's Photophone actually plowed the road for Turtle Talk with Crush on the 6th and final installment of this 3-part series, on next week's edition of Disney Dish. And by the way, just to bring this to a close here, Stitch's Photophone, which this article in the Disneyland line from August of 2002, flat out said, look, this is a temporary attraction.
Oh, there you go. That's the key to longevity, folks, is to be named a Disneyland temporary attraction. We should live so long, Jim, as to be known as a temporary Disney theme park attraction.
That's it, exactly. That what was only supposed to run a couple of months ran nearly 6 years. Made it through.
Of course it did. Yeah, exactly.
So the winter, early spring of 2008. So as Mr. Testa was alluded to, there's nothing quite so permanent as a temporary attraction or the Disney theme park.
It has that half-life of strontium, I think. It's just incredible.
There we go.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for the show today. You can help support our show by subscribing over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia, where our latest exclusive show is a look at It's a Small Worlds around the world. And there's a link in the show notes. Also, I forgot to mention our last show, which is the previous exclusive on Disney Park Castles. Also a link in the show notes. In the newest Disney Journey, friend of the show Jim Scholl shares the latest about Coco and its construction conundrum at DCA. That and Jim answers the question, could DCA build their version of Monstropolis? Where may it go and why? Click on the link in the show notes to watch the video. On next week's show, special guest star Drew Taylor is in for me while I'm on a cruise, and Jim will finish up the history of Imagineering's Living Characters Initiative. You can find more of Jim at jimhillmedia.com and more of me, Len, at touringplans.com. Also check out The Case 4 with Chris Cox, a podcast where Chris, Jim, and I debate one theme park topic at a time, and you get to vote on who's right. We're produced spectacularly by Eric Kersey and David Gray, reminding you that yes, every woman older than you is called auntie. No, we don't ask why. And we do not step in front of our elders in the food line. At the 2026 Eastern Shore AFRAM Festival on Saturday, August 8th, 2026, at the Western Sussex Boys and Girls Club, that's on Virginia Avenue, in beautiful downtown Seaford, Delaware. While Eric and David are doing that, please go into iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Unload Jim, this is Len. We will see you on the next show.